The sun was falling low over the Limpopo Valley, its golden light painting the long grass in molten amber. Heat shimmered over the plains, and even the insects had grown quiet. It was the kind of stillness that settles just before something vanishes. In a clearing nestled between twisted marula trees, a lioness lay with her cub. She was young, barely 5 seasons old, and this was her first litter. The other lionesses of the pride were scattered, watching the horizon or grooming lazily, confident in their safety. After all, they were the top of the food chain here. But nature has a way of reminding even kings and queens that nothing is ever truly secure. The cub was named Tao, meaning lion in Setswana. Barely 6 weeks old, he was a golden puffball with oversized paws and a dark patch of fur above his left eye, like a smudge left by the wind. Tao had just started exploring a few paces from his mother, pouncing on dry leaves, attacking his own shadow, discovering the world with fearless delight. As the lioness dozed, her breath steady and calm, Tao wandered closer to the tall grass beyond the clearing, only a few steps, barely more than a tail's length, where the world looked just a little more interesting. He didn't notice the pair of eyes watching him. Not from the sky, not from a distance, but from the grass, from the shadows. A female leopard crouched motionless beneath the brush, her spotted coat rippling with muscle, blending so perfectly into the undergrowth that even the sharpest lion eye might have missed her, especially at dusk. She was old enough to know better, but desperation is a savage hunger, and this leopard was desperate. Just days ago, she had lost her 2 cubs, stillborn or perhaps dead from thirst. The drought had hit the central bushveld harder than anyone expected. For days, she had dragged their tiny bodies from shade to shade, unwilling to let go, until instinct or grief or madness finally snapped something inside her. Now she hunted with a different fire. She had been watching the pride for days. She'd seen the cub. And now, in the long shadows of dusk, her moment had come. Like smoke across a still river, she moved. Her paws made no sound. Her body brushed no leaves. Her heartbeat was slow, steady, a predator's rhythm. Tao was barely 3 steps from the clearing when he saw something. Not clearly, just movement. A shape. He turned, and the world exploded. The leopard lunged from the grass like a whip, jaws flashing. She didn't roar. She didn't growl. It wasn't an attack. It was a snatch, precision. Her teeth closed gently, not on flesh to kill, but to carry. In seconds, she vanished, slipping back into the grass before the lioness had even raised her head. But something was wrong. The lioness sat up sharply. Her ears twitched. She turned. The grass was still. She stood, pacing in circles, sniffing the earth. Panic spread slowly, like fire beneath the soil. She let out a low, guttural moan. Not a roar, not yet, just confusion. Her eyes swept the ground. No blood, no drag marks, just emptiness. And then came the sound that pierced the savannah. Her call, deep, desperate, ancient. She called again, and again. The others rose now, sensing something wrong. They scattered in different directions, sniffing, searching, silent. But Tao was gone, carried like a ghost into the gathering dark. Morning didn't come gently to the Limpopo Valley. It broke like glass. Birds stirred in the thorn trees, but their songs felt muted, like they, too, sensed something wrong. The golden light returned to the land, but it found no play in the eyes of the lioness who had lost her cub. She had not slept. Her pacing had turned the dust to powder around her. Her paws, usually majestic and quiet, now bore cracked pads from walking all night through the thickets and along the river's edge. She had called again and again, but no call had been answered. Her name was Sena. It meant to bring in the language of the nearby Tonga people. But today, her body had nothing to bring. Her milk soured inside her. Her eyes were sunken. Her chest moved, but her breath seemed borrowed. And across the plains, something began to shift. It began with the pride. The older lionesses circled out farther than they ever had before. They abandoned their kills. They crossed into unfamiliar territories. Even the dominant male, a scarred brute named Jaro, growled uneasily at the scent trails that led nowhere. Then came the humans. The rangers at the Limpopo Wildlife Corridor had been tracking this pride for over a year. Tao's birth had been celebrated, a new generation, a fresh seedling in the roots of a lineage that had survived poaching, fire, and human expansion. But now, their GPS tags showed strange movements, sleepless wandering, erratic stops, no feeding activity. Something had happened. One ranger, Thabo, a quiet man in his 40s who knew the land like a second skin, was the first to understand. He had seen lions lose cubs to hyenas, to starvation, even to crocodiles. But this was different. "There's no sign of death," he told his team. "No feathers, no tracks, no drag. It's as if something took him like a whisper that screamed silence." They deployed drones. They placed fresh camera traps. They scanned miles of savannah with thermal gear. Days passed. No lion cub, no carcass, no remains. But 3 nights after the disappearance, a drone caught something. A shape, flickering in the infrared, a leopard, carrying something small in its jaws. That wasn't unusual. Leopards carried prey like that all the time. But then, the leopard entered an old den site, one that Thabo knew had been used recently by a grieving female leopard who had lost her litter. And the small bundle she carried? It wasn't prey. It didn't dangle limp like the neck-snapped impalas usually do. It clung. It moved. Back at base, Thabo froze the frame and zoomed. He adjusted the light. His breath stopped. The tiny face, barely more than a smudge, was not that of a warthog, piglet, or monkey. It had short, rounded ears, a dark spot above the left eye. Tao. The wilderness was holding its breath. The land doesn't often care about what it keeps or what it gives. But in that week, something unspoken passed through the animals. The baboons stopped barking near the river. The jackals didn't circle as close to the lion pride at night. Even the hyenas kept their distance. And Sena. She never stopped searching. Every night she returned to the clearing where she'd last seen him. She would sit for hours beneath the twisted marula tree, her ears perked not for danger, but for the faint sound of paws, a breath, a cry, anything. She had stopped eating. She had started listening like prey does, with every cell in her body straining toward hope. And far from her, in a quiet den filled with leaf litter and the fading scent of 2 lifeless cubs, the leopard named Nyana, meaning little one, watched over the lion cub as though it were her own. She didn't understand what she was doing, or maybe she did. In the wild, instinct is law. But grief rewrites the laws. Tao mewed softly now, not like a lion cub, but like something in between. He was confused, but he was warm and alive. He didn't know that the tongue grooming his fur belonged to a species that should have ended him. He only knew that he was not alone. On the 5th day, a strange sound echoed through the forest near Nyana's den. A sound she hadn't heard in many nights, the distant, throaty call of a lioness, faint, far, but rising like a question. Nyana stood at the mouth of her den. Her ears flicked toward the wind. Inside, the cub stirred. The ranger's camera trap, placed discreetly on a low branch, captured it all. Nyana didn't run. She didn't move. She stood and listened. Back at the ranger station, Thabo rewound the footage again and again. He looked not just at the cub, but at the leopard. Her ribs showed. Her eyes were sunken. But there was something else. A look not of possession, but of protection. He turned to his radio. "Tell the team," he said. "We've found the cub." And then, after a pause, "But this isn't a rescue story. Not yet." The den lay hidden beneath a cluster of acacia thorns, draped in silence and shadows. Sunlight filtered through in broken strands, painting moving patterns on the dusty floor. A place made for solitude, not miracles. And yet, inside, something was unfolding that no law of nature had prepared for. Tao, the lion cub, was alive. Not merely surviving, but bonding. He no longer cried through the night. His breathing had steadied. His eyes, though still fogged with confusion, began following the movement of his unexpected guardian. He suckled the bones Nyana brought him. He mimicked her walk. He would sit beside her while she groomed her fur, clumsily trying to copy her motions. But most haunting of all, he no longer responded to the distant calls of his lioness mother. Each night, when Senna's roar drifted faintly through the trees, sorrowful, desperate, unwavering, Tao blinked, but didn't move. His body no longer recognized it as his mother's voice. Instead, he leaned against Nyana. The leopard, his kidnapper, his new protector. She had changed, too. Nyana was a solitary cat. Always had been. Leopards are shadows, not mothers built for pride and company. But with Tao, something softened. She no longer moved in the nervous, ghost-like way leopards are known for. She moved more openly, pausing to rest her chin on the cub's back, letting him bat at her tail without snapping. Was it instinct gone haywire? Or was grief so strong it had rewired her into something else? The rangers didn't know. They watched through motion-triggered camera traps and long lenses from 1/2 kilometer away. And every day, their footage grew more unbelievable. Tao follows Nyana to a stream and plays with her reflection. Day 8. Nyana grooms the cub's head while he sleeps curled between her paws. Day 10. A jackal approaches. Nyana growls low and places herself between it and the cub. The footage went viral inside conservation circles. Whispers spread. Scientists argued. Some said it was impossible. Others called it a glitch in evolution. One renowned ethologist simply said, "This isn't science anymore. This is grief learning how to love again." But outside the den, danger waited like breath before a scream. The scent of Tao, lion cub scent, began clinging to Nyana's fur, and that scent was starting to drift on the wind. It reached the hyenas first. They didn't care whether it was a lion or leopard or something in between. A vulnerable cub was meat. That night, when the moon hung low like a cracked eye, 2 hyenas crept near the den. Their snickers echoed like broken laughter across the dry grass. Inside, Nyana stiffened. She didn't flee. Instead, she stood over the cub, her muscles coiled, her eyes burning with something primal. Not just instinct, something deeper. When the first hyena lunged, she met it mid-air with claws flashing. Blood sprayed against the bark. The second tried to flank her, but Nyana twisted, fast and ruthless. The battle was savage, brief. The hyenas fled, yelping, bloodied. She returned to the cub, limping, bleeding from her side. But she didn't lick her wounds. She licked his face. The next day, the cub mimicked her limp. A ranger, watching from a distance, wept behind his lens. And yet, with every day that passed, A question hung heavier in the air. How long could this bond last? Nyana was not built to raise a lion. Tao would grow. He would become bigger, stronger, louder. His hunger would outpace hers. His instincts would start to wake. Already, he growled slightly when food was taken away. Already, his paws were larger than her own. And worse, the lion pride was moving closer. Sina had picked up a scent trail. It wasn't her cubs, not fully, but it was enough. She followed it day by day, her body ragged, her coat dulled, her voice hoarse from calling. She didn't know what she was walking toward, only that her heart had not let her stop. Back at the den, Tao curled into Nyana's side once more, unaware of what he was becoming, and Nyana, breathing shallowly, her side still bleeding from the hyena fight, placed her head beside his. The camera captured them together in the half-light. A leopard with a lion cub. A thief and a mother. A miracle and a tragedy waiting to bloom. Because everyone watching, from rangers to scientists to the silent predators of the bush, knew this bond shouldn't exist, and bonds that defy nature rarely survive it. The silence before a storm isn't always a hush. Sometimes it's too much sound, leaves shaking for no wind, birds fleeing without reason, the thick stillness of predators watching from just beyond sight. In the days after the hyena attack, the bush turned restless. Something had shifted. Nyana felt it in the way the insects stopped humming outside her den. She felt it in her own breath, faster now, always shallow. Her wound was healing, but badly. Infection had begun creeping through her bloodstream like smoke in a cave, and still she would not leave Tao. She moved slower. She hunted less. She brought the cub smaller prey, even going hungry some nights to feed him first. But Tao was growing, and nature was not slowing down to match her devotion. One afternoon, under a grey and brooding sky, Tao let out a sound Nyana had never heard before. A deep, sharp cub roar. It wasn't threatening, it wasn't powerful, but it was different. Too lion. Too loud. A sound that carried. Miles away, Sena, the lioness mother, raised her head. Her ears twitched. She froze mid-step, her nose quivering. She had been following faint signs. Paw prints distorted by the wind, scraps of bone that smelled familiar, tufts of fur left on thorns. But this sound, this was real. Her cub's voice, changed but alive. She began to run. At the same time, something else was listening. Jaro, the male lion of the pride, Tao's biological father, had picked up her trail days ago, but he wasn't following to protect. In lions, when cubs vanish, males assume the worst, and when unfamiliar scents mix into that mystery, leopard scent, the conclusion is brutal. To Jaro, the return of a cub that smells like another predator is not a reunion. It's a threat to dominance, an impurity to erase. And now, the sound of a lion cub roaring from leopard territory was an insult written in blood. That night, thunder rolled in the distance, a dry storm, all sound, no rain. Inside the den, Nyana stirred. Her senses, dulled by fever and hunger, flicked to life with a jolt. Something was wrong. Not the wind, not the rain. The silence. Even the rats had gone quiet. She stood, slowly, her ribs sharp beneath her spotted coat. Her tail stiffened. She moved to the entrance of the den and sniffed. Then she heard it. A growl, low, rumbling. Not hyena, not jackal, lion, male, full-grown, close. She turned to Tao, who sat wide-eyed behind her. Still young, still small, but no longer unaware. He moved toward her, instinctively staying close, and that's when Jaro emerged. Massive, muscled, his mane like a thundercloud across his shoulders. His eyes narrowed the moment he saw the leopard, To him, this was no mother. This was a thief, a predator who had taken what wasn't hers. He growled, deep and final. Nyana did not move. She didn't crouch. She didn't run. Instead, she stood between Tao and the lion, her own body the barrier. She was dying. She knew it. But in that moment, she became more than Leopard. She became myth. Jaro charged. What happened next was not a battle. It was a collision of grief and instinct. Nyana slashed upward, her claws catching his cheek. Blood sprayed. Jaro struck back with a blow that sent her tumbling into the base of the tree. She got up, stumbled, charged again. She fought like something that no longer feared death. Tao screamed, not the sound of a cub, but of something breaking. He tried to run to her, but a branch caught his leg, tripping him. Nyana saw it, and with one last burst of life, she threw herself forward, knocking Jaro sideways. Enough to make him hesitate. Enough to make him turn his rage toward her, away from the cub. And that was the moment Sena arrived. She launched from the underbrush like fire set loose. Her roar shook the trees. Jaro turned, startled. Nyana collapsed. Sena did not hesitate. She didn't wait for explanation, for signs, for scent. Her eyes found the cub. She knew him. Even now, even changed. She knew. She ran to him. Tao whimpered as she nuzzled him, and for the first time in 11 days, he responded, pressed his face into her neck, cried into her fur. The bond was not dead, just buried. Behind them, Jaro backed away. Not out of guilt. Lions don't feel guilt, but because his challenge had been answered. And beside the tree, Nyana lay still. Sena turned to her, approached slowly, and in a moment no camera captured, no ranger saw. Something ancient passed between the two females. Sena lowered her head to Nyana's, not in dominance, but in silence, as if to say, I see you, I remember, and I carry your scent with my cub now. That night, the storm finally broke. The rain washed away the blood, but not the story. The rain fell all night, not in sheets, but in soft, whispering trails, like the sky itself had decided to mourn. Every tree in the Limpopo Valley bent slightly under the weight of it. The red earth turned dark, soaked. The air smelled of wet bark, and the faint metallic scent of blood washed into the roots. By dawn, the wilderness was quiet. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just quiet. In a small clearing at the edge of the acacia grove, beneath a crooked tree half choked in vines, the lioness Sena lay curled around her cub. Tao, the son she had lost, the son she had found, his small body pressed into hers again, like it never left. Like the distance between them had been a bad dream, easily shaken off. But not everything had returned. Tao stirred uneasily in his sleep. His fur still held the scent of another. His dreams flickered with memories not made in a pride, but in the silent den of a spotted mother with golden eyes and slow breath. A mother who now lay still, just meters away. Nyana. Her body had not been disturbed in the night. No hyenas had come, no scavengers dared. Something in the air, in the way the lion stood guard, kept the wild at bay. Even in death, Nyana was being honored. As the sun rose, its light fell first on her fur. Her flank was caked in dry blood, but her face looked peaceful. She had died with her eyes closed, as if she had finally rested, as if she had waited long enough to know he was safe. The pride had gathered. First the lionesses, quiet and slow-moving, circling the body without aggression. They didn't growl. They didn't roar. They observed, as if recognizing, in some instinctual way, what had taken place. This wasn't a rival. This wasn't a threat. This was a mother. The wrong species, the wrong bloodline, the wrong everything, who had done what only a mother can do. protect. Even Jaro, the dominant male, remained still at the edge of the trees. His wounds from the night before had clotted. His pride was unchallenged. Yet he did not assert himself. He didn't need to. This was not a moment for dominance. It was a moment for silence. Nearby, the rangers had set up a silent observation post. Thabo, the veteran tracker, stood with his hat in his hands. He had seen elephants mourn their dead. He had seen a chimpanzee cradle her stillborn for 3 days. But this was the first time he saw one species mourn another. Mid-morning, Senna approached Nyana's body, not cautiously, not with teeth bared, but slowly, almost reverently. She sniffed the fur. She nudged the fur. She nudged the still shoulder. Then she did something no one expected. She licked Nyana's forehead. Once. A simple motion, a gesture without language. But if it could be spoken, it might have meant, "You loved what I love." You did not have to, but you did. Tao watched from beside a termite mound, eyes wide, quiet as wind. And then, after a moment, he stepped forward. He pressed his face into Nyana's side. He did not cry. He did not make a sound. He just leaned in, as if trying to listen to a heartbeat he already knew had stopped. The pride didn't interrupt. No lion moved. For 10 full minutes, they waited. And in that time, the birds stopped flying. The insects held their buzz. Even the river beyond the grove seemed to still. It was as if the forest itself paused to allow one final goodbye. When the cub finally walked back to Senna, he didn't run. He walked, with small steps, with dignity. And as he lay beside her, curling into her warmth, Senna lifted her eyes one last time to the tree under which Nyana lay, and then lowered her head over Tao like a shroud. That night, the rangers returned to bury Nyana. They didn't move her far, just a few meters to a shaded spot beneath a wide umbrella thorn. They placed stones over her, not to mark territory, but to honor memory. And above her grave, they left something else, a camera trap, turned off, with a note carved into its casing. She broke the rules of nature to protect something not her own. We watched, we learned, we remember. Weeks passed. Tao grew stronger. He fed more, played more. But every so often, when the sun slanted just right and shadows flickered on the grass, he would look toward the trees, ears twitching, as if waiting for a figure that would never come. And maybe, deep inside the heartbeat of the forest, something waited too. Not for return, but for remembrance, because some bonds aren't made to last forever. They're made to remind us what's possible, even when nature says it shouldn't be.